Alright, so with One Piece being a pretty long anime, there are obviously plenty of emotional scenes and emotional moments to choose from. But for me, personally, I came up with 5 moments that had me pretty emotional. Number 1, Robin wants to live. Now, I definitely think this is a moment that deserves some recognition, especially considering what Nico Robin went through in her past. She went through some pretty rough stuff, and I think at a certain point, she really didn't know whether or not it was okay for her to live because of how she was treated, what she went through, her upbringing, and what she was called. So for Robin to say that she wanted to live, this spoke volumes to me. I mean, I can't imagine being on a run for 20 years, trying to turn to people, trying to do work for people, and trying to make a living, but all those people are doing are turning you into the government. Robin really went from being able to trust no one to being able to trust the Straw Hats. She went from everyone trying to turn her into the government to having a crew that is willing to fight even the government on her behalf, and I think that's really beautiful. Number 2, Luffy loses his crew. Now, a lot of things went down during this arc, and I think it's one of my favorite arcs because of everything that happened, the way it was written. It was just a lot going on. Now, it was very heartbreaking to see Luffy broken and defeated like this. I mean, he and his crew, they were just here trying to get their ship coded for Fishman Island. One thing led to another, and they were all fighting for their lives. What I will say is that this was a pretty creative way to do a time skip and for all of the Straw Hats to get stronger. At the back of my head, when I watched One Piece for the first time, I wondered, how are they going to do a time skip? How was everyone going to train together? Because, you know, usually in shonen anime, there's typically some sort of time skip or whatever. And from a writing standpoint, I love seeing MCs going through trials and tribulations and seeing how they overcome these things. Like, Luffy was definitely put through the ringer here, and I enjoyed every bit of it. Number 3 would have to be what happened with Ace. And if you don't know, you should probably stop this video. But if you do know, and you're up to date, then yeah. Ace getting snuffed out was a pretty emotional moment for me. Like, there was so much build up to this moment, and I low-key feel like this could have been avoided so many different ways. Like, I'm not trying to blame Ace, but that's probably how it's going to come across. But wasn't he advised not to go after Blackbeard in the first place? Not to mention, when Ace was set free, all he had to do was keep escaping. Like, everyone went through so much to get him back that it kind of sucked and angered me just a little bit seeing it all fall through like that. Regardless, Impel Down, Marineford arc, basically the whole Summit War saga was like an emotional roller coaster. It was really great writing, if you ask me, and you had a bunch of side characters being used here like Bon Clay, Jinbei, Number 3. I mean, I enjoyed everything here. We even got to see Kobe. It was just so many great characters, so much happening, and I think it's really amazing if you can separate the main crew and still manage to capture attention and hold on to attention with just the side characters and Luffy around. Anyway, the main thing I'd like to point out is that this was not a loss that I expected, and I think that made it all the more emotional in my opinion. I mean, the whole time, you're basically rooting for Luffy, you're rooting for the others, you're rooting for these people to succeed, they're stepping in, trying their hardest to free one person. It's kind of wild. Alright, so this emotional moment takes place during a Whole Cake Island arc, and I gotta say, this was really hard to watch. I don't like seeing the crew members fight amongst themselves, but in this case, Sanji was just trying to look out for Luffy and the others. In Sanji's mind, this was the only way to protect them, and that was why he did his best to push them away. I mean, all of this is literally happening on Big Mom's turf. And Sanji took a lot of L's this whole arc, and I think part of what made Sanji versus Luffy so emotional is we got to see what Sanji was going through, his relationship with his family, how Puddin was treating him, and it just really put things into perspective. I mean, I still don't like what Sanji did. I don't agree with anyone putting their hands on the captain, but his reasonings and immediate remorse, plus everything he was going through, made it really easy to forgive him. Lastly, we have Usopp versus Luffy and the whole thing with the Going Merry. Like I said, I don't agree with anyone putting their hands on the captain, but this was pretty emotional as well because it made me angry. Now, I'm all for holding characters accountable. Like, I'm not going to not hold a character accountable just because I like them. I don't do that. I don't even do that for Sakura. Like, to me, wrong is wrong regardless of the reason you have. Not to say you don't have a good reason or a reason I can't feel sympathetic to, but wrong is wrong to me. But that's not to say you can't show growth. That's not to say you can't have redeeming qualities. And I think it's more of a problem if you don't grow from your mistake. Like, to give y'all an example, Gaara from Naruto, he went through some pretty messed up stuff. So I can understand why he did what he did, but it was still wrong. Now, Gaara definitely redeemed himself by becoming a Kazekage and becoming a better person overall. And the whole Usopp versus Luffy thing made me angry because it really could have been avoided. And it definitely shouldn't have been that deep, you know, like risking your friendships, risking the crew. Yeah. That's just my opinion though. Now, as for the going merry aspect of this, I feel like if an anime can get you to feel strongly about a ship and get you to cry over it, it definitely deserves being the top 5. Because at the end of the day, this ship did carry them pretty far in their journey, but even I knew that this ship was not going to last them forever. Anyway, those are my top 5 emotional moments that stood out to me above all. Not to ignore or say there aren't any other emotional moments, those are just the ones that stood out to me. Now, y'all feel free to let me know what y'all feel like are y'all top 5 emotional moments or moments that really had you shedding a tear, grabbing a Kleenex, or whatever. Thank y'all for tuning in. Sierra Nova is out.